Welcome to Lead Pods, the official leadership podcast from USMB for pastors and church leaders, where our goal is to increase our impact together.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 99 of USMB Lead Pods. My name is Matt Ersman, and really grateful to have you with us today. Today, I am talking with Scott Thomas, a name that many of you probably recognize. Scott is honestly one of the leading voices in church planting today, not just in USMB circles, but really nationwide. And I'm really grateful that our denomination, our network of churches, is really so passionate about church planting. That's really one of our focuses right now. As you'll hear later in the conversation today, there continues to be such a need for more churches, and that continues to be a focus for us. And so Scott just recently came on board on staff with USMB as our new Church Planting Mobilizer. And like I said, Scott has decades of experience. He's been a part of planting over 100 churches, helping in various capacities. He himself has planted an MB church in Colorado, which we'll hear much more about here in a minute. And he has a passion, obviously experience, and just a lot to offer us as a denomination as we keep working on planting new churches. So today, we get to know Scott a little bit, to hear some more of his background, some of his history, some of his vision for this new role for him. And I think, and I hope and pray that after listening, you'll be encouraged and inspired to get involved with church planting in some capacity. So let's take a quick break to hear from a quick sponsor, and then we'll get to my conversation with Scott Thomas.
Where do you want to be 1 year from now? USMB's lead coaching is an intentional, ongoing, life-on-life relationship that empowers you as a local church staff member or lay leader to realize your full potential and purpose with confidence, courage, joy, and vocational accomplishment. For 12 months, you'll meet with a trained MB coach to explore where you are and create a map to where you want to be. Coaches are skilled at intuitively listening, asking powerful questions, defining goals, helping you develop relevant action plans, and providing the accountability and support for you to succeed. For more information about lead coaching, contact Ed Boschman by phone at 661-549-6021 or via email at edboschman@gmail.com or visit www.usmb.org/lead-coaching.
All right, friends. Well, today I'm excited to have a great conversation with Scott Thomas. If you've been around the USMB family for a while, you probably know Scott, or at least seen his name pop up here and there. Scott recently joined our team February 1st, or I guess I should say rejoined our team as the interim USMB Church Planting Mobilizer. Scott has years and years and years of really good experience, and we're grateful to have him back on the team. So Scott, thanks for talking with us today.
Yeah, whenever you say years and years and years, that just means old.
Yeah. It's a nice way to say you're old, right?
Yeah.
It's a respectful way. So Scott, again, a lot of people knowing probably have met you or had some conversations with you, but if people haven't, can you just give us a quick bio rundown of who you are and what you've been doing lately?
Yeah. Again, being old, I've got a long list of that, but yeah, I'll keep it short. And I grew up in Colorado, and my wife and I both did. We grew up about four blocks away from each other. Interesting.
Oh, cool. Nice.
And our parents lived there, and my parents still alive and living there. Her parents passed, but stayed there entire their life. So we grew up in that area, and we're in church, both of us in the same church. Interesting.
Okay.
At the time. And grew up, and I went away to college, and it's there where I had an encounter with God and a real serious car accident, and was led back to the Lord through my basketball coach, my high school basketball coach, which interestingly, I'm doing his funeral this weekend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he was a legend in the city, but he was the one and only person who could bring me back into the church. He did me promise that I would. And so that led to giving my life over to the Lord once again, then following him into ministry. That's where I met my wife as well. Even though we were in the same church, we kind of finally then met there once again. And yeah, went away to college and played basketball in college, and then became a youth pastor at the grand old age of about 21.
Okay.
And we've been serving in the local church since, for about 43 years.
Wow.
And most recently doing church planting partners.
Yeah. Awesome. So no, in there, I think you had 17 years, something like that, of you were a lead pastor for several years. So you've been youth lead, and now you've been involved with church planting for a long time. I know church planting, I know is kind of you live and breathe church planting. Can you just talk us, why is that something that you're so passionate about?
Well, it is a very core of what I love and to do. It's always been, even when I was in college, that first year in college, I just felt like there was a sense of starting churches and being a part of something. And there was really a need for that. And some people might say, well, we have enough churches. We don't really, if you look at it, with the number of immigrants coming in and a number of population that's rising in the U.S. and it's growing. In Nashville, where I happen to be in Nashville, the number it's increasing by 100 people per day. That's the population. So taking into account even deaths and, of course, babies being born. So it's taking all that into consideration. And there's 100 people. So at the end of the week, there's 700 new people. And if you had a church of 700, that'd be pretty good. So the need is every week there needs to be another church that's growing and developing. And that's the way we reach new people. We reach new residents. We reach different kinds of people. So some can target towards a different group of it, whether they're in a downtown urban setting or out in a rural setting, wherever they happen to be. There you can reach new people with the gospel. And that's our thing, is make disciples of all nations. And that's been the heartbeat of everything that we've done.
And if people don't really know your background, again, you've devoted a significant portion of your life to this. Can you give people just some background of your church planting background? Acts 29, anything you want to tell us about just how many plants you've been involved with? Just give us some more details. I'd love to hear some stories about that.
Yeah, in my 17 years of pastoral ministry, it was devoted entirely to replants, renewal. And I was the first one to coin the word replant, according to a person who did his doctorate. He tracked me down and said, you were the first person who ever used that. But anyway, so in this idea of replanting, I did that 3 different times at 3 different churches, growing that. And we were in Denver and doing a replant. And this one became associated with Acts 29 because we were going to do a church plant alongside that. And this one we discovered Acts 29, and I was on the board of them for 10 years and served as president for 6 years. And so it was an amazing time. Of the 10 years, 9 years, 11 months, and 2 weeks was amazing. And the last 2 weeks wasn't. So, Marcial was a part of that. It was its sponsoring church. It was the one that kind of grew it out. And so when it began to go into a different direction, I felt like a wrong direction, and history will kind of repeat that. That's when I stepped out. And I told the pastor that if Marcial continues in this trajectory, it will implode. Yeah. I don't know that I would believe that. I'm not a prophetic person. This what came out of my mouth. And it turns out it was true 2.5 years later. So we went from there and we moved to Nashville, where we were going to start a church planting residency and be a part of church planting. And as it turned out, the funding didn't work out with that for a number of reasons. And we ended up with C2C network, which was the sponsoring organization, is the Canadian Conference of Mennonite Brethren Churches. Yeah. So that was my employer, CCMBC, and we did C2C, and we were literally from sea to sea, from the Pacific to the Atlantic, and all the way up to Newfoundland and Clear Across, and the Lord was bringing great things. And so they began to merge then with Multiply. Right. And when it merged with Multiply, then it said, why don't we move into North America? And that's where I said, well, I still have a home in Nashville. How about if we just make the center there and move forward? And it didn't stay with that too long because of my wife's health. Her kidney condition became problematic where she couldn't function. So I had to step down from traveling. It was just traveling way too much. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sorry to hear about your wife. We spoke just briefly, and you said that she's doing a lot better, so I'm so glad to hear that. And maybe we'll get to the C2C and Multiply thing in here just a minute. But, it's unfortunate. People listening they've probably heard some things about Mars Hill, X29. People probably have a wide variety of opinions. And like you said, for you, most of it was a good journey for you. There's some tragic things there at the end that caused you to step away for various reasons. But again, just focusing on the good, I'm sure you were a part of some pretty amazing things. A lot of churches were planted through Acts 29. And so again, I'm sure
Obviously, great experience. Did anything stick out in those years? What were some of the kind of highlights for you?
Yeah, well, when I took over, there was 50 churches in the network of Acts 29. And so it was like, I was a pastor at heart, still am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that became my flock, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
not an authority over them, but, just people I shepherded. And I served them in that way. And we began to grow and develop. And it had the term brothers on mission together. So we were tight together, loving each other, interacting, real relational, but we had a mission to do.
Yeah.
And we worked together in that mission as well. So during that time, the Lord allowed us to plant 400 churches, which was amazing. 158 the last year I was there, which was unprecedented and probably not even healthy. If your body had that kind of growth, they would call it cancer. But it was good. It was exciting. It was really growing and fruitful. I'd say we would shake the trees and church planters would fall out. And now you have to plant a seed, water it, and grow the tree that will then bring the fruit coming out of it. So, but we had a chance to develop the assessment process. During that time, I wrote Gospel Coach, and we were able to develop a different kind of coaching system. And it was a really beautiful culture that was being developed in that time. And, everything good doesn't remain static.
Yeah.
Things do change. But during that time, it was a beautiful experience.
Yeah. Well, we won't get into all the Mars Hill stuff, but I just wanted you just have I'm sure you have story after story of really cool things that have happened. And of course, lots of experience, which is perfect for the role that you're currently in. And you kind of just mentioned earlier that you were with the CDC Multiply thing. So again, this is kind of your second go around with us. You are with USMB from, I think 2016 to 18 and part of that time. So again, you kind of breezed past that, but can you just remind people your involvement in those couple of years, how you were helping us back then?
Yeah. Well, during that time when my wife went down, we were actually, we flew on the plane. She was getting treatment in Canada for her kidney disease. The doctor said, you're good. You're healed. And so we flew to Denver in order to see her dad. And she passed out on the plane. And the doctor in Denver said, do not do anything. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. Just stay here. You can't go back to Canada. You are sick, girl. And so she got back into treatment and did that. Well, we were 18 months for her recovering, where she was virtually bedbound in the basement of her dad's house. Well, and so I was traveling back and forth across to Canada and coming in. There's during that time that we planted a city church in Pueblo, Colorado, which is an MB church. And it really is, Matt, one of the highlights. One of the most beautiful, precious things that I've ever been a part of is planting that. And of course, that's, where we got involved with the Southern District, and we got involved with Seek, and we got, of course, nationally with Don and others. And so it was just a beautiful time of building up a congregation, and they are flourishing now and seeing miraculous things. One story that I'll tell you about that was, I said, okay, I'll do all the other stuff. I'll do all the technical things. You guys go try to find the building. Try to find a building where we can meet in, a place we can rent. Because they were on the ground. I was up in Canada doing our thing. Well, they called me while I was in Ottawa, remember, and they said, we found a building. And I said, what's the rent? And they said, it's not for rent. It's for sale. And they said, well, we can't buy it. What are you talking about? I said, you just got to see it. It's perfect. Exactly what we're looking for. So showed up that weekend. We did a walkthrough, and it was an amazing thing. It was an old bar, downtown area, an old bar that had gone out of business, and it was for sale, and it was a great price. And we ended up buying it. We're 2 weeks old.
Wow.
We're barely even me. We're 2 weeks old. Our first public service was in that building, having just put a down payment on it. And we were kind of getting things ready and going for it. And I come back home one Saturday after we were kind of preparing the building, and we put things on social media. And my wife was crying when I got there. Of course, she's not doing well physically. I wonder what's going on. Why are you crying? And she's looking at her phone and she said, there's a church starting tomorrow. And it says it wouldn't happen if you weren't here, and you wouldn't be here if I didn't get sick. Getting sick was worth it for a church to start in this city.
Wow.
Just a beautiful thing. So I was taking someone up. I happened to be in town, and we were checking out potential gas leak in the building. And the guy was walking up the stairs. He said, "What are you going to use this for?" And I said, "A church." And we were walking up the steps that are metal steps, and you could hear him stop. He just stopped walking.
Yeah.
And I turned around and he said, "Man, I hoped you have a whole lot of holy water."
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this place was wicked. It was just wicked. And I can't believe you're going to do church. Well, a few weeks later, as I said, I was gone all week in Canada, and my team was working hard, and they were working with people. We did a baptism, and I baptized this woman. And then afterwards, we had lunch. And over lunch, I said, "Tell me your story." I trusted the team. And she said, "Right up here in this very space, in that corner," she pointed, "over in this corner, I used to sell drugs in this bar.
Yeah.
And today, in this corner, I got baptized."
Yeah. That's amazing.
So that's why it's just life-changing.
Yes. I've been in that building, and Pastor Mario and Stephanie, if they're listening, we love you guys, and they're doing amazing things in Pueblo. So it's so cool that you were a part of that, because it is an amazing ministry and they're doing a great job and a very cool building. So that's cool. That's part of your story. So, okay, let's get back to kind of current day. So Church Planting Mobilizer, obviously Brian Harris was in that role for a little bit, and he did a great job connecting with people. That is a little bit of an ambiguous term, I guess, for some people. So what does it mean for you to be a church planting mobilizer? What does your role entail now?
Well, kind of the difference between what some would understand as the district minister, who is there to care for the needs of the pastors in that particular district. My job is to do that with the church planters, but also to be one who is prodding church planting, not only among the church planters, but among the current churches. Letting them to see that you can be involved in church planting, and it's going to be a good thing for you to get involved in this, a very positive thing that's going to happen. So that's really my job, is to be the ambassador for church planting for USMB, and to help show a vision and practicality. Really, we can't just be all vision. We have to have some practice to it as well. And so what does it mean to actually move forward in church planting? That our church, which has 83 people, and we're barely making the budget, and we have no big fund that's going to hold us up. And our pastor is taking just a minimal salary, and he's doing everything. And you want us to get involved in church planting?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we do. Because it's going to be good for your church. A church that's on mission, that has something they're doing, has a project they're pushing towards, have the funds that they're giving out beyond themselves, is actually going to bring people in that say, "That's a church I want to be a part of."
Yeah.
And so that's not the only reason. Of course, the greatest reason is the Great Commission and the Great Commandment. We want to make sure that we're making disciples of all nations and showing how we can love our neighbors ourselves.
Yeah. Awesome. And we've had this conversation on this podcast before, but I'd love to hear you address this, that there are some people out there who would say, "Oh, starting a new church costs a lot of money. You need a lot of talented people. You need some place to meet. It's a huge undertaking to start a new church." So some people might say, why not just invest in the church we already have? Why do we need to do a new plant? You've kind of hinted at that a little bit, but what do you say when people ask you that question?
Yeah. And being an old replanter myself, I love the idea that it can be churches that, are renewed and are made new. And so I think the local church is important as well. It needs to be a priority. It has to be a priority. It is a priority because it's Christ's bride. But Tim Keller said this. Tim Keller was a pastor. He started a church in New York City, very prolific church planting, city to city church network began at that time. we lost a voice for the kingdom, but nonetheless, Tim said this: the vigorous, continual planting of new congregations is the single most crucial strategy for two things. One, the miracle growth of the body of Christ in a city. Number two, and you might not expect this, number two, the continual corporate renewal and revival of the existing church in a city. And here's he added this, and that would be enough to go, okay. He said, nothing else, not crusades, not outreach programs, not parachurch programs, not congregational consulting, not trying to renew yourself, but rather the consistent impact of a dynamic, extensive church planting. End quote. So and if you don't believe just Tim, there was a scientific research done with a PhD student. I have the dissertation on my computer, and he examined 624 Southern Baptist churches.
Okay.
Church. So Southern Baptist churches, and they had planted a church. What happened over the next 5 years after they planted a church? And so he did this. I mean, this must have been extensive. 624 is pretty big data. And he said that the attendance rose almost 22% for that 5 years after the church plant.
Wow.
You think, like, well, they're giving people away, it should go down. No, it's actually gone up 22%. And monetary growth was favorable in 7 out of the 8 variables. They designated gifts went up 77%. Tithes went up 48%. And it didn't matter how close the church plant was even. So there are different levels of church planting that you can get involved in. So you can take on that. And obviously, when the church planter himself takes on all of that, but he can't do it alone.
Yeah.
He's dependent upon the local churches and the contributions and the help of other churches. So a church of, well, here's what I believe. Matt, I believe that I think every church in the USMB, but let's just say that 100 churches, about 100 churches, about a third of the churches of the USMB gave $100 a month into church planting. And there was only 100, and all you give is 100, not 1,000, not a ring of 40,000, not 500, 100. Now, let's do the math on that. Essentially, if you're a Starbucks freak, which I'm not, because I like good coffee, but it would in 1 month you spend $100 on coffee, and that's very temporal, like very temporal.
Very, yes.
Yeah. And we're talking about kingdom advancement, eternity building for $100 a month. Now, so let's do the math. 100 churches monthly give $100. That equals $120,000 a year towards church planting.
Yeah.
What can we do with that? Well, nationally, we can build an assessment center. We can build a coaching system. We can build training opportunities for church planners and for churches. We can expand the residency program that I have in place right now, which some of the USMB church planners are taking part of. We can expand that and can include more people and can grow that. And so it is money that is spent. When you assess, coach, train, support these pastors going forward, and you can do that at $100. You don't have to commit $100,000 a year, which would be what it would take for a single church, perhaps, to pay the salary and all the startup expenses and such. It would take about $100,000 or so. It doesn't take that. Not every church can do that. Some may be able to do that, and certainly some in USMB could. But what if we just gave a little bit? So you can get involved in whatever level that you happen to be at. And it's a beautiful opportunity for them to do that.
And again, you and I chatted just briefly, and just a little bit of research I've read. I know that, let's say tomorrow we had $300,000 ready to go. You mentioned when we were just chatting today that when you were with Acts 29, you could shake a tree and there'd be 3 church planners fall out. Now I've heard you and others say that that's not really the case anymore. It's harder to find people who are ready to dive in and start a church. I guess, is that true? Are the numbers, is it harder to find good church planters these days? And why do you think that might be?
Yes, every network, and I talk to multiple networks and denominations, and they are saying one of the best church planting network leaders in America, hands down, one of the best. I have great respect for him, and he's been in church planting for years and years. And he called me and said, in fact, I was in Phoenix at a meeting with the USMB when he contacted me, and he said, "Where can we find church planters? We're having a hard time finding church planters." Yeah. And my answer to him was, in our churches.
Yeah.
Right in our churches. In fact, this is even more true with me, because who is going to plant Mennonite Brethren churches? The only people that are going to plant Mennonite Brethren churches are going to be Mennonite Brethren churches.
Right.
There are a lot of people, a lot of different groups that have money for different things, but there's access a lot to Southern Baptists. Presbyterians have money set aside for just them, and that's all right and good. The only people that are going to plant USMB churches are conference churches.
Yeah.
If we say we believe in this and we get behind it, we actually feel like this is our not only privilege but our responsibility to plant these churches. Yeah. And so that's why we just really got to focus on planting churches that are going to bring USMB. It's, and we say, well, we can't afford to do that. We don't want to do that. And, it's like a young couple. They say, "Are we ready to have a baby?" And the answer is never. We're never ready to have a baby. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough, things set up. We don't even have a bedroom. Nothing is in place. But they have babies anyway, and they figure it out.
Yeah, right.
It works out great, and their lives are enriched as a result of that. And the same is true with church planting. You're never ready to get involved in church planting. Yeah. You never have enough people. You never have enough money. I get it. I was lead pastor for 17 years. Every week you're like, do we have enough people and resources in order to sustain our ministry? Yeah. But it's very counterintuitive that we jump forward and we say, we're going to believe, we're going to be fruitful, and we're going to multiply, and we're going to go for this all that we can.
Yeah. Awesome. And do you have any insight or any just guesses of why is it getting harder and harder to find these people? Why are fewer young leaders wanting to become pastors? Do you have any insight into that? Yeah. People have talked about this and have written extensively on this, particularly in the last, 4 or 5 years. The number of people who are, pastors are dropping out. I think the number is, close to 80% of all pastors have considered quitting in the last 12 months. Yeah. It's getting harder and harder to be a pastor. And the young people are looking at this and going like, do I want that job? Is that what I want to do? Right. I want to get criticized. I want to be seen as a person that has to beg for volunteers and beg for money and beg for people to come to church even and work long hours. And I don't have my weekends and, all the natural things, the earthly things, the non-kingdom things they're looking at. And they're saying, I don't want to be a part of that. But what it's going to do is those pastors who we do find that say, I want to be a pastor or a planter, are the ones who say, I've gone through it. I'm pushing past the temporal, the non-kingdom. I'm looking at the kingdom. I'm looking at eternity. And that's where I'm pushing towards. So those are going to be better pastors and better planters in the future. So maybe we'll have less, but we're going to have better. Yeah. But they're right in our church if we don't have this miserly mentality. We honestly need to repent of our miserly mentality that it can't be done. We just got to hang on and get it done. We got to get through the next week. We got to get through the end of the year and just go like, we got to get beyond that and say, he's called us. The very first command God gave in the Bible, be fruitful and multiply. Right. And that's consistent through the whole Bible. By the way, that's not just a one-time thing to Adam and Eve to have babies. It said, be fruitful and multiply. Go do, this is what I want you to do. The parable of the
good steward. It's
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to be the one who takes our resources and hides them in the ground. And those resources are not only money,
Mm-hmm.
but our best young couples.
Yeah.
Who wants to lose their best young couple?
Right.
Nobody.
Right.
But we need to take our next best couple, and we need not just bury them in the ground and hide them and say they're ours. And Lord, when you come back, I'll give them back to you. And he's going like, you wicked, slothful servant.
Yeah.
We need to be like the ones who multiply what the Lord has given to us and take and say, I'm going to trust this young couple to go plant this church, and I'm going to pour into them financially. I'm going to give to them what they need. And I'm going to then entrust it. See, the things that nationally we can do is they don't have to be experts in church planting.
Right.
That's why I put together the church planting residency.
Yeah.
They can send them online. They stay embedded in that local church. They serve in that local church, but they get trained on what does it mean to be a church planter, and over the course of a year, be better prepared, not fully, completely prepared, but better prepared to plant a church at the end of that time. So they don't have to be experts. And that's where nationally we can take advantage of that and use those resources to pull that up. But, giving them out and saying, Lord, double it. They're going to go to the next city or county over, double it, triple it, quadruple it. We're out making disciples. We're not trying to build just a number of people in our church. We're trying to make multiple disciples in our community. And that's what he's called us to do. We got to get way past that. But one more verse, just because I was John 12, when it says, unless the seed falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone.
Yeah.
That word alone in the Greek is monos, which means, non-reproductive.
Yeah, right.
It takes two to reproduce. It's got to go into the ground and die. Unless it goes in the ground and dies, it remains non-reproductive. Unless a church actually takes and invests what they have for the kingdom, people, money, time, talent, treasure, such, gives that and puts it in the ground, buries it for the Lord, it is not going to remain alone. It's actually going to, it says, as Jesus said, but if it dies, it bears much fruit.
Yeah.
I looked up that word much in the Greek, and it means much. Like there's a lot. It's going to bear a lot of fruit that comes out of that. So, then he goes on to say, if we tried to save our life right here on this earth, he's trying to contrast the eternal from the temporal. If you try to save your life, you're going to lose it.
Right.
But if you lose your life for my sake, it will be a gain for eternity.
Right.
That's where we got to get past is this. It's going to be, we got to hang on for today. We have to invest for tomorrow.
Right.
Everything we're doing is not for today. It is for tomorrow. It's for eternity. And it's for the next generation, not just ours. It's for the next generation. Let's grow and build churches that are going to be able to reach every nation, everywhere. And until that time is done, we're not done. We got to keep after.
Yep, that's right. So if someone listening, maybe they themselves are the young couple you're talking about, or maybe a pastor's listening and someone's been on their heart, been on their mind, like, hey, this is the guy, this is the couple we want to invest in. I know you mentioned you have a residency. I think you're doing some kind of workshop, right? So if someone is kind of in that spot where either they themselves are interested or they've got someone on the radar, what is the next step? Like, tell us more about the residency, the workshop. What's kind of the 101 training to get this started?
We do assessment of church planters. They feel like, okay, we're really called to do that. And I did a recent assessment of a USMB planter, and he was accepted, and he's moving forward with that. And so he's now in my residency. He's taking part in that, but I'm also coaching him every week. And so I don't offer this to non-USMB, but for the USMB, like we're meeting right after this meeting, and we're going to be talking about, okay, what's the next step? What's the next step? And we're a year away, but it's going to take, 52 weeks of preparation and getting ready. And it's going to take going through a I have, we have a cohort in this residency. So it isn't just one-on-one. I mean, when I coach, but it's meeting with a group of others who are talking about the same thing. And interesting, one of the times, one of the USMB guys, his video, and he couldn't talk and he couldn't say, and his internet was bad. So he was just listening. He was just quiet during the whole time. And I said, man, I'm sorry, your internet. And he said, no, I needed to hear what others were saying. This was very good for me to be involved with that at that level. And so that's part of the value too, is you're with a group of other people who are learning and growing and developing and discovering things at the same time. And so so we have that. And then any kind of training that they're necessary, we can point them to those directions, what they are. And we got some uniqueness with the USMB.
Yeah.
And those are the things that we would like to develop going forward. But those things take resources and time.
Yeah. And you've been in this role for all of about 35 days as we're talking here. So there's a lot of ground to cover. So the walls of Jerusalem in Nehemiah's time were built in 52 days. So just give me another 17 days, we'll have her done. Okay, great. We can't wait to see what you do in the next 2 weeks. So we've kind of hinted at this a couple of times, Scott, but I know, so obviously you're with us kind of part-time. You do this with churches all around the country. People might just be curious about that. So outside of USMB work, tell us more about what else you're doing with other churches.
Yeah, I have a nonprofit called Church Planting Partners, which you can be found at churchplantingpartners.com. And so what I do is looking for healthy church planners.
Okay.
And healthy pastors, trying to help them to become healthier. 65% of all pastors claimed themselves that they weren't healthy. The self-disclosure, they said, wow, I'm not healthy, 65%. So we're trying to get them to be in a healthier state. And interesting, the same number is true of those churches that are declining or plateauing in the U.S. The number is 65. It's often been said to be 80, but a more accurate one is 65% of churches and 65% of pastors. Well, I wonder, if it's true, where you have an unhealthy pastor, you have an unhealthy church. And if a church is unhealthy, it's not growing. It's actually declining, or it's hanging on for dear life.
Yeah.
And so those numbers are the same. So that's what we're trying to do, is to get healthier pastors and healthier churches by being involved in that. So I do a lot of coaching, and then this residency, I do some consulting and teaching and doing some seminars and things on my books. And
cool. So as you're out there searching for the best church planners in the country, you're going to bring all of them to us, right? Like we have first dibs on the best people we find, right? Is that in your contract somewhere?
Exactly. I just talked to one recently that, like, hey man, you'd be really good at this. And he said, well, I've applied for one of the USMB church openings. So
awesome.
I've been texting back and forth on that process as well. That's exciting, because it isn't about getting another notch of a church planner.
Sure.
I'm of course disagreeing with you. It is actually moving forward with making disciples of all nations. So we're trying to expand that as far as it can be.
Yeah.
And if it's done in that local church, that's amazing. If it's done in a new church plant, that's amazing. So we don't see those pitting against each other or say, man, we could have had another one on our team.
Yeah, right.
We have one on our team. It's making disciples.
That's right.
Yeah.
And of course, I was kidding about that. I know we're on the same page, but I was curious to hear you talk about this. Obviously, you've had, again, I'm not going to joke about how old you are. You're not old, but you've had a lot of experience. You've had a lot of success in churches around the country. You've seen a lot of really cool things happen. And comparing MB lands to other denominations, we are kind of a smaller one that a lot of people don't know about. So I'm just curious for your story, Scott, like why did you decide to kind of come in with USMB? Like what about Mennonite Brethren kind of gets you excited, and why, like, I'm sure you could have had a lot of opportunities. So why, of all the opportunities, of all the church planning opportunities, all the church networks, what about USMB makes you excited?
Well, we started City Church there in Pueblo, Colorado, which if you did research, you'd find out it's the 11th most dangerous city in America.
Right.
Not something you'd know. not even the residents know this because
Yeah.
it's just like, well, there's another shooting. There's another beheading. Recently, there was a beheading. It's alongside St. Louis and Chicago and Memphis and Minneapolis and some of those. Well, what's the best thing to offer to a city filled with violence, filled with anger, filled with gang members, filled with shootings and beheadings and robberies and violence, is a place of peace.
Yeah.
That's a distinguishing mark from just being a non-denom church or another kind of church. The distinguishing mark is we are a church of peace, and we have to offer the Prince of Peace, Jesus Christ. It isn't just that church is a church of peace, but our Savior and our Shepherd and our King is the Prince of Peace. And so we get to offer that. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God.
Right.
And so that's the distinguishing mark. And that's why it's such a beautiful offering in that particular city and in many others, right, that are filled with violence and such. And it's true as our hearts are at unrest. And, a couple in the middle of, rural Kansas, for instance, are they're fighting too for significance and insecurity. They're fighting for trying to make ends meet. They're having unrest in their life as well.
Yeah.
And what's better to offer them a place of peace? That's what we're all looking for. Yeah. And it's found in the person of Jesus Christ. And the Mennonite Brethren focus on that and make that really a big flag to wave, going like, we have a Savior who makes peace with our past, makes peace with our sin, makes peace with our future, and gives us a place of eternity. But he also makes peace right here where we live, because now, instead of just being caught up in the earthly, temporal ways, we have a purpose, and that purpose is the kingdom purpose.
Yeah.
And being a people of the book, another big, push is like, you get away from the book, you get away from God.
Yeah.
You get away from God, there's no hope.
Yep, that's right. Well, Scott, we could talk for a long time. I just love learning from you. You have so much experience that you can share with us. I'm really grateful for that. Our time's going faster. I'll get you out one last question here. Again, you have experience 17 years as a lead pastor. We have a lot of pastors listening. We have a handful of pretty large churches in MB land, but we have a lot of smaller churches. And no matter the size of your church, I think every pastor probably feels like they've got more on their plate than they can handle. They're busy. They're doing their best to grow the church they have. There's budget stuff. There's culture stuff. It's hard work being a pastor, right? So if there's that pastor listening today, and like the idea of planting a church, they would love to do that, but they feel the reality of just the day-to-day grind that we all face. So if a pastor isn't currently involved in church planting, they feel busy, maybe they are kind of on that burnout spectrum, but they want to do something. What would you say to that pastor, and what's kind of a good first step for them to get involved with what you're hoping to do?
Yeah, let's get on together and have a conversation by Zoom or phone very quickly, because it isn't you have to pour. It could be $100. It could be less. It could be $100, and we're not just talking about money. There's going like, hey, we got a young couple, but we have no money. We have no place for them. We're out in the middle of some place where we don't need churches, for instance, or at least our perception.
Right.
And so let's dream together. I just talked with one in Texas not too long ago, a pastor, and he was thinking like, we need to look outside of our area of Texas in order to plant churches. And I said, how about where could you, we began to dream and began to think about, okay, here's a place to do that. I had another conversation with a person saying, okay, what about up in the Central District area? Where can the churches be planted? And we identified a city where they can be, and we can begin praying about that and working towards that. Yeah, well, so it's all kinds of different levels.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we're so glad to have you back on the team, Scott. Thank you for, again, the wisdom, the experience that you bring, just the passion. I can see it in your eyes, Scott. When you start talking about churches, your eyes just twinkle. I can tell this is something you care deeply about. I love that. We're grateful to have you on the team. So thanks in advance for the good work you're going to do, and we look forward to hearing more about it. So thanks for your time with us today.
Thank you, Matt. It's been a joy.
Well, thanks again to Scott for taking some time to talk with us today. I really enjoyed that, and I'm looking forward to hearing stories that come out of these new church plants that will come from Scott's leadership. And just like we were saying towards the end there, I think this is one of the really great things about being part of a larger denomination or network of churches, is that we can do a lot of great things together, right? Like Scott talked about there, if each of our churches just chipped in a little bit, and if we work towards sharing some of our talented people, we have a lot of churches, a lot of great leaders, a lot of resources that we can pull together to pull off some really cool things. And that's been our tagline all along, is to increase our impact together, and church planting is a great example of how we can do that. So I do encourage you, if you or your church are interested in kind of taking some next steps, whether it's financial or investing in an individual or whatever that might mean, get in touch with Scott. Keep your eyes, your ears, your hearts open to other people who might be on a similar calling. And I really believe that some really cool things are going to come in the next few years. To see some fruit of all of our efforts and our desires to help these church planting efforts grow, I look forward to seeing that happen more and more. So yeah, reach out to Scott, check out usmb.org, and let's see if we can make some progress on this together. All right, so thanks again so much for listening today, wherever you are. Hope your spring is treating you well, and I look forward to seeing you next time for our 100th episode here on Lead Pods.
Thanks for listening to Lead Pods. Make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing to our show wherever you're listening today. Learn more by visiting usmb.org, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll see you next time as we learn more practical tools to increase our impact together.